I'm here to talk about Will Morgan Jones find Rick in The Walking Dead Season 5. Morgan made a brief cameo appearance after the ending credits of Episode 1 of The Walking Dead Season 5 entitled No Sanctuary. Now, why did Morgan leave King County, Georgia? Because in The Walking Dead Season 3, Episode 12 entitled Clear, Morgan made it perfectly clear that he wasn't going anywhere when Rick asked him to come back to the prison with him. So now let's get started with my discussion video about Morgan. Now at this point, it's revealed that Morgan is looking for Rick and the rest of he is looking for Rick group and Rick himself. He's looking for Rick because at this point, Rick is the only human being that Morgan actually trusts. So it's confirmed that he is looking for Rick. But why did he leave King County, Georgia? Because like I said before, he made it perfectly clear that he wasn't going anywhere because he tells Rick he don't want to have no blood on his hand. He don't want to see none of his friends get slaughtered or get killed. Because he tells Rick, you either get torn apart by teeth or bullets. And he don't want to have that blood on his hand. And he don't want to see, again, he don't want to see his friends die in front of his face because he cannot cope with death, especially when it comes to a friend of his like Rick. Now remember, in Season 3, like I said, Season 3, Episode 12 entitled Clear, Morgan had a whole bunch of weapons. Now before you say anything, before you say Rick had took most of those weapons with him, so he didn't really leave Morgan none. That's a lie. Because in that episode of Season 3, Rick had 3 bags. He brought 3 bags with him after he left Morgan's house. Morgan gave him weapons and Rick had 3 bags. Morgan still had a shit ton of weapons left in his house. So why is it that we only see Morgan with 1 gun when we see Morgan in episode 1 for The Walking Dead Season 5 after the ending credits? We only see him with 1 gun. Something had to happen in Kings County, Georgia for Morgan to leave there. And here goes some points here goes some good points. Okay, point 1 could be that his house got overran by zombies and he had to escape. But still, I would think that within that amount of time, zombies are real slow, so I would think that they would give him time to at least grab more than 1 weapon. Or point 2, humans finally came and took Morgan's house. Not even took his house, but took everything he had in his house. His food, and his supplies, and his weapons. Or point 3, Morgan eventually runs out of food, so now he's looking for some sanctuary and he's looking for some people who might have food and supplies. Because remember, Tyrese and Sasha did the same thing when they left Florida. They specifically left Florida because they didn't have no food. They had a sanctuary because Tyrese told a group at the prison when he first met Rick and them, Rick wasn't there, he told Herschel. He said that we was in Florida and we was living in a garage. Now within that garage, this guy had dug a tunnel in his garage and dug it underground. So we was living there. But we left. This is exactly what he said. He said, but we left when the guys start running low on food and supplies. Now, like I said about Morgan leaving, it could be the food and supply part, but still, if it was that, you would think that he would still bring a couple of guns. Now, I'm not saying he have to bring a whole bunch of guns because I know he can't carry all those guns because he had a lot of rifles in there. He had a lot of guns in there, shotguns. He had a lot of stuff. Now, maybe Morgan might bring, or maybe Morgan had brought a couple of pistols with him and had put him in that backpack that we saw him, well, in the cameo appearance in the end of the episode, we saw Morgan with a backpack on. Now maybe he had a couple of pistols, small handguns within that backpack. Maybe. But like I said, those are a lot of weapons. And when you talk about The Walking Dead, you talk about how much value that weapons have. And he had a lot of weapons. He even had hand grenades in there. So he don't have none of that. So, like I said, it was either those three. Point one, he ran out of food and he left. But like I said, if he ran out of food and he left, why didn't he bring some guns with him? Point two, either humans found where he was staying at and took his food or robbed him, so he had to escape. Or point three, a herd eventually ends up forming, and the zombies eventually end up taking, or at least coming where he's at and taking over, and he eventually gets outnumbered by zombies, so he have to escape. But even then, you would think that a person would still have time to get weapons because zombies are slow. So I would think that he would have time to get weapons. So it's either those. But I definitely say he probably ran across some humans because he did tell Rick before he ran across humans and he killed them. That's why he used that concept. Clear. Clear means clear anything out of your way that you feel is a threat, meaning zombies and humans. Now, let's talk about the scene that we see Morgan in episode 1 of season 5. We see him, like I said, we see him make the cameo appearance, and we see him find a tree. Well, first we see him find a sign of tournaments. And on that sign, he see how the sign has been marked out, and he see what Rick had wrote. No, well, he see the no, and he see no sanctuary at the bottom, so he know there's no sanctuary right there. So, but eventually he ends up finding a tree that has a X mark carved on the tree. And on the X mark, you have a circle carved around the X mark of the tree. Now, remember, in season 3, episode 12, which we saw Morgan again, entitled Clear, Morgan had a map in his house. And on that map, it had the same marks that we saw carved on those trees. Because on that map, it had all the houses that Morgan had burnt down and destroyed. And it had Rick's house in there because he told Rick I had to burn down your house. And on Rick's house, it had a X sign with a circle around the X. That means he destroyed those areas. Now, on that tree, it have the exact same sign that Morgan had on his map when Rick had ran into him again. And when Rick had looked at the map that Morgan had when Morgan was knocked out. But I don't think that's it. I don't think Rick had carved those marks in the tree, because when Morgan ends up finding the signs, or end up finding the no sanctuary sign, it's revealed by Robert Kirkman, this guy Gimple, that months have passed since then. So when Morgan find that sign, months have passed, because you can tell by the plant vines. The plant vines has really grown longer until a point where they start wrapping around the sign. Now, when we first see the sign, the plant vines wasn't that long. But then when we see the sign again, when Morgan see the sign, the plant vines has really grown, and you can tell that a couple of months have passed. So yeah, a couple of months have passed when we see Morgan finding those sanctuary signs. But back to the carvings on the tree. We see carvings on the tree. A lot of people were speculating that Rick could possibly do it. Well, it's possible, because remember when Rick and his group was on the railroad track, And when we first saw Rick mark that sign and put no sanctuary on it, he didn't well they didn't exactly go off into the woods, because you have the left side of the sign that has no sanctuary, then you have the back side of the sign that has a number on it, and the number is 268. Now, on the back of the sign it says 268. That's the way Rick and his group had took into the woods. Now remember, Rick was the last person to go into the woods. Now it's possible he could have carved some trees within the middle of the woods, because we saw him. He was the last person to go into the woods. So we didn't exactly see him completely go all the way into the woods yet. So it's possible he could have carved something on the trees, or it could be Garrett, because I'm pretty sure after the destruction of tournaments, we see Garrett. Well, we don't see them. We know for a fact that Garrett and his people end up finding that sign. Well, end up finding that sign that they had made, and they end up seeing that sign, and they end up seeing that somebody had put no sanctuary, or put no on the sign. So they probably end up going through those. They probably end up going through those same trails in the woods that Rick and his group end up going to. So Garrett could possibly mark that tree to try to draw some type of, or try to draw people in, so they could possibly kill them and eat them. Because when you talk about the hunters in the comic book, you got to remember, the hunters doesn't like to go hunting. They like they prey to come to them. So once they prey come to them, it makes it easier for them to ambush. Remember, with Garrett, what they did with tournaments, they broadcast the tournaments on the radio so people could come there instead of them going to the people. Right? So maybe they mark those signs on the tree to have what we'll try to get humans to possibly follow those signs. Now, once humans follow them signs, they might end up falling into an ambush from them. Again, Garrett is the remix version of Chris from the comic book, and Chris is the leader of the hunters. Chris and his group don't like to go hunting. They prey come to them like humans. Again, when you talk about Garrett don't like to go hunting for humans. What he did, he broadcasted tournaments on the radio so they prey could come to them instead of them looking for them. It makes it much more simpler, and is much more safer for them, so they won't get hurt or killed trying to approach a human and kill them or take them. Now, I'm not saying that Morgan will end up running into the hunters. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying, that he might end up finding the church. And by the time he end up finding the church, Rick and his group might have already been, or might have already have probably killed Garrett and his people. So when Morgan ended up running to Rick, I can see him saying, well, I had followed some signs on the tree. And I can see Rick saying, we didn't. I can see Rick saying, I could possibly see Rick saying, I did that, or we didn't do that. So we do know it's possible that Morgan will end up traveling with Rick and his group to the Alexandria safety zone, because it happened in the comic book. He ended up traveling with them. So I think he will find them. And again, I'm not saying that if Morgan followed these signs and Garrett was the person who had carved these X's in the tree, I'm not saying that they will end up getting Morgan. Morgan might end up arriving too late, and by the time he arrived and found the marks, or he start asking about the marks that was in the tree, Rick might end up telling them, well, we already killed those people. You don't have to worry about that. Or they might be dead when Morgan finally realizes who had wrote the marks on the tree. So, this was my discussion video for The Walking Dead Season 5. Morgan Jones, man, I can't wait to see him return. I know I kind of repeated myself, but I wanted y'all to kind of see what I was saying. So remember to hit that subscribe button. Give me a like for this video if you like my discussion video for Morgan Jones. And remember, leave your comment sections in the comments. Leave your comments in the comment section down below. And tell me give me your thoughts. And have a blessed day.